Welcome to Life Story 999. Today, we're sharing a compelling story about a young girl whose courageous actions transformed her father's heart. When her father, a wealthy but strict businessman, mistreats their long-serving housekeeper, his 12-year-old daughter stands up against his unfairness, teaching him the true value of compassion and respect. Stay tuned to discover how one brave voice can create lasting change. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Life Story 999 for more inspiring stories. Mr. Donovan was a wealthy businessman, known for his rigid discipline and high expectations. He believed in rules and structure, running his household and his business with an iron hand. For Mr. Donovan, time was money, and discipline was the foundation of success. He had little tolerance for delays or excuses. Living under his roof was Mrs. Harper, a 55-year-old housekeeper who had worked for the Donovan family for nearly a decade. Despite her age, she worked tirelessly, often ignoring her own struggles to serve the family. Her husband was ill, and her modest earnings were the only means of support. Despite the challenges, she remained dedicated, always working with dignity and humility. Mr. Donovan's 12-year-old daughter, Emma, was different from her father. Emma was kind-hearted, perceptive, and always seemed to understand the struggles of others. She had grown close to Mrs. Harper over the years. To Emma, Mrs. Harper wasn't just a housekeeper. She was a comforting presence, someone who always had a kind word or a warm smile. One morning, Mrs. Harper arrived late for work. The previous night, her husband had been in the hospital, and she had stayed by his side. After a long, sleepless night, she rushed to Mr. Donovan's mansion, hoping her tardiness wouldn't be noticed. Unfortunately, Mr. Donovan was waiting at the door, his expression cold and stern. "You're late," he said, his voice dripping with irritation. Mrs. Harper tried to explain about her husband, but Mr. Donovan cut her off sharply. "I don't want to hear your excuses," he snapped. To him, discipline was everything, and any deviation was unacceptable. Mr. Donovan's reaction didn't stop at harsh words. In his anger, he grabbed a nearby stick and struck it against the floor, the sound echoing through the hallway. In a fit of rage, he lashed out physically at Mrs. Harper, leaving her shaken and in pain. Little did he know, Emma was standing at the top of the stairs, witnessing the entire incident. Emma's heart sank. She had always seen her father as strong and successful, but now she saw a side of him that frightened her. The man she admired had turned into someone she barely recognized. Seeing Mrs. Harper, a woman who had always been kind to her, being treated so cruelly made Emma's heart ache. She knew she had to do something, but she wasn't sure how. Emma returned to her room, her mind racing with what she had just seen. She couldn't reconcile the image of her loving father with the man who had hurt Mrs. Harper. Emma remembered all the times Mrs. Harper had been there for her, helping her with her homework, comforting her when she was sad, and always offering a listening ear. She knew she couldn't stay silent. Even though she was just 12, Emma understood that what her father had done was wrong. But standing up to her father terrified her. He was the head of the household, the man everyone listened to. How could she, a young girl, challenge someone so powerful? But as Emma thought about Mrs. Harper's tears and her quiet dignity in the face of her father's anger, she felt a surge of determination. She knew that if she didn't speak up, no one else would. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Emma decided it was time to confront her father. She was scared, but she knew this was something she had to do, not just for Mrs. Harper, but for herself. As they ate in silence, Emma took a deep breath and looked across the table. "Dad, I need to talk to you about what happened today," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Her father looked up, surprised. Emma could feel her heart pounding, but she knew she couldn't back down now. Mr. Donovan stared at Emma, his fork suspended in midair. What do you mean, Emma? He asked, his voice calm but with an underlying tension. Emma swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly under the table. I saw what you did to Mrs. Harper today, she said, her voice gaining strength. You were angry because she was late, but she tried to explain. Her husband is sick, and she's been working so hard for us for so many years. It wasn't right to treat her like that, Dad. It was cruel. Mr. Donovan's expression hardened. Emma, you don't understand. Discipline is important. If I allow people to come late or make excuses, everything will fall apart. People need to know there are consequences. Emma shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. But Dad, there's a difference between discipline and being cruel. Mrs. Harper isn't just a worker. She's a person who has been loyal to us for so long. She deserves respect, not punishment. You always tell me that we should be kind and fair. What happened to that? For a moment, silence filled the room. Mr. Donovan leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. He had always seen Emma as his obedient daughter, never questioning his decisions. But now, he saw the conviction in her eyes, a strength he hadn't realized she possessed. You think I was wrong? He finally asked, his voice quieter, almost uncertain. Emma nodded. Yes, I do. I think there's a better way to handle things. You don't have to hurt people to show them discipline. You always tell me that respect is important, but respect should be earned, not forced. Mr. Donovan sat in silence, the weight of Emma's words pressing on him. For the first time, he felt a flicker of doubt about his actions. He had always prided himself on his strength, but maybe, just maybe, his daughter was right. The next morning, Mr. Donovan found himself thinking about Emma's words. He had always believed that being strong meant being strict, but now he wondered if he had misunderstood what true strength was. Determined to make things right, he decided to visit Mrs. Harper at her home, something he had never done before. Standing outside her modest house, he hesitated, feeling an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability. When Mrs. Harper opened the door, she looked surprised. Mr. Donovan, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice filled with confusion. Mr. Donovan cleared his throat. Mrs. Harper, I came to apologize. I realize now that I was wrong to treat you the way I did. You've been loyal to our family for years, and I didn't respect that. I'm truly sorry. Mrs. Harper was silent for a moment, clearly taken aback. She had never expected an apology from Mr. Donovan. Finally, she smiled, a gentle, forgiving smile. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. I appreciate your apology. It means a lot to me. Mr. Donovan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. It wasn't easy for him to admit his mistakes, but seeing Mrs. Harper's forgiving expression made him realize the power of a sincere apology. He had taken the first step toward change, and it felt right. After that day, there was a noticeable change in Mr. Donovan. He began treating his staff with more respect, making an effort to understand their struggles rather than simply enforcing rules. The atmosphere in the Donovan household shifted. The staff, including Mrs. Harper, felt more at ease, and the sense of tension that had once filled the house slowly dissipated. Emma watched her father's transformation with pride. She knew that her courage had made a difference. It wasn't just about standing up to her father. It was about standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. Mr. Donovan also noticed how his relationship with Emma had changed. He admired her strength and her willingness to speak up, even when it meant challenging him. He realized that true strength wasn't about power or control. It was about compassion, understanding, and the ability to grow. This story reminds us that real strength lies in kindness and the courage to stand up for what's right. Emma's bravery in confronting her father shows us that even the smallest voices can make a big impact. Mr. Donovan's journey from harshness to understanding demonstrates the importance of growth and the power of a sincere apology. Leading with empathy and respect creates a positive environment for everyone. Emma's actions inspired her father to change, proving that kindness can ripple out and transform even the most rigid hearts. Respect is not about fear or authority. It is earned through compassion and fairness. Thank you for watching this story on Life Story 999. If it touched your heart, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales that remind us of the importance of kindness, courage, and love.